Good morning. I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And good morning to everyone watching at home. Welcome to the City Governance Committee meeting of the 11th of August 2021, and I declare this meeting open at 9:31 a.m. Now, due to the Queensland Government's current COVID-19 restrictions, this week of committee meetings we do not have a physical public gallery. The health and safety and well-being of Logan's staff and community is Council's top priority during the COVID-19 pandemic. As such, I would like to mention an additional special welcome to the members of the community that are watching today's meeting via live stream and those of you that watch it later. I would also like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcasted and audio recorded, and I remind attendees to practice social distancing and take the necessary safety precautions. As today's agenda does contain a confidential report, I note that a proposed motion to suspend section 7.11A of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code for the purposes of audio recording the closed sessions in today's meeting for Council's internal confidential use only is now displayed on the screen behind me. Is there a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. I will now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you so much. And I note that we do not have any absences to note today because we are all present. We will now go to section 4.1 of the reports. I will now refer to item 4.1 and I will ask Mr. Silvio Trinca, the Chief Executive Officer, to please enter the discussions. Before we open discussions on this item, do any councillors have a declarable conflict of interest? No? Go for it, Mr. Trinca.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, councillors. This report is in regards to the performance of our projects under the 2020-2021 operational plan. So it's a Q4 report, it's the end of the year report, and it's also the end of the reports that will be against the previous corporate plan. So as council is aware, during this year's budget process and in conjunction with the budget, we also adopted a new corporate plan and a new operational plan aligned to that corporate plan. So this is the final report against the previous corporate plan. Now, the report details the performance and any of the projects that were not completed, and I'll just briefly talk to those. The full report is attached as background papers to the report. So at the end of Q4, we had 68 projects that were completed out of a total of 76, with 7 projects listed as non-complete. One of those had previously been the result of a report to the previous quarter's reporting, and 6 of them are included in this report. So I'll just briefly go through those 6 projects, that were not completed. The first one was the City of Choice initiative, and we're in the process of trying to get some agreement from the federal government and the state governments in regards to a memorandum of understanding, which we haven't received confirmation of, and so that project will be carried forward. The second one was in regard to delivering a detailed design work for the new general community space at Greater Flagstone. That project is reliant on land being transferred from Peat to council, and as yet that land has not been transferred, and therefore we cannot commence that process. So that's going to be recommended to be carried forward into next year's operational plan as well. The next one was about completing a condition assessment of our road network, sealed road network, over 2,000 kilometres of roads, and we do the condition assessment every 2 to 3 years. That is a very time sensitive program. It is done by external consultants, and then they have to analyse the data from that survey, and that is still in process. The survey's been completed, the analysis of the data is in hand, and hopefully will be completed by the end of August. So we're recommending that be carried forward as well. The other project was the construction of the new PCYC at Cronulla Park. Now, it didn't get completed by the end of June, but we have actually had our practical completion on the 23rd of July. So the job is completed now, handed over, and so there's no recommendation to carry that forward, even though we missed the date of the end of June. Construction of the next project, construction of the outdoor facility at Kingston Butter Factory, is due for handover in September this year, subject to our weather, and as such we're recommending that be carried forward into next year. And the last one was deliver a Logan environment strategy, and we put that on hold to ensure that it aligned with the community visioning project and the new corporate plan, and that once those two were adopted, that was brought to fruition, and at yesterday's meetings you formally adopted that strategy to go to community consultation. So it had to be carried forward into the next operational plan, although it's effectively completed. What that means is that if we look at the projects, we completed 89% of the projects that were in the operational plan. If I'm cheeky enough to say that the Cronulla PCYC was really completed, it's really 91%. So a pretty good effort, I think, against the operational plan. Now, in regards to the corporate plan, I think, as I said, this is the final operational plan linked to the last corporate plan, which is a 5-year corporate plan. So given that we adopted a new corporate plan, we only did 4 years out of that 5-year plan, but we completed 315 projects overall in that corporate plan, in the operational plan, sorry, aligned to the corporate plan. And 85 of them were delivered in accordance with the operational plan at the time, 85%, sorry, and 11% were completed in the following year. So overall, we completed 96% of all projects aligned to the operational plans for the last corporate plan. A total of 313 projects out of 315. So I think, you know, we as an organisation do use the corporate plan and the operational plans as performance metrics for the organisation to highlight priorities, and for the community to also understand what we consider as priorities. And we'll continue to do that with this year's operational plan aligned to the new corporate plan. So I'm happy to take any questions in regards to that.
Thank you. I have a couple of councillors that would like to speak. So I have Councillor Bradley, Councillor Lane, myself, and then Councillor Karansky. So Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair. Oh, sorry. Mr Trinker, my hand went up when you said initially that Cronulla Park PCYC was complete, and then you corrected and said it was 91% complete. I'm just curious if you have an possible opening date for that facility. Thanks.
Sorry, just to correct the record, the practical completion for Cronulla Park has been made on the 23rd of July. So it has been handed over to Council. I'm not aware of the actual commencement of when PCYC will start running their programs through that, but I'll get back to all of councillors.
So just to clarify that, when we actually had a tour a couple of weeks ago, there were still works happening that hadn't been completed. Whilst it might have very well have come over to Council, there's still haven't finished some of the works.
Yeah, and that's the definition of practical completion. Practical completion means that it's in a state where the contractor is able to provide it, hand it over as a completed project, understanding that there might still be minor works or minor maintenance works that have to be undertaken. But it is actually handed over to Council.
Do you have a possible date?
No, I'll get back to you, Councillor, and all councillors.
Thank you so much. Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. Good morning, Mr Trinker. I've got a question. As I was reading this report, I thought, wow, this is fantastic. There's so many green spots on the things for completed, and council should be really proud of that. You said that this is our way of telling the community what the operational plans are, the priorities are for the community. And one of the things that I noticed that wasn't in the report is any reference to councillors and the new local infrastructure plans and how much has been completed of those first year plans and programs and where that funding has gone. I'm just wondering, am I in the wrong sphere asking a question on whether or not that should be part of the operational plan, or is that traditionally not been part of it? And if so, you know, I mean, sorry, I know I'm rambling a bit, but as far as community reporting goes, I would assume the operational plan, particularly from a councillor's perspective, given we all are investing just under $1 million a year into the community, that it would potentially be included as part of that?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Lane. We don't include all capital projects, we include the programs. And the new LIP program has never been included as part of an operational plan project. That's not to say that we shouldn't report back on how the progress of that LIP funding, and my recollection was that your councillors called for a report on the LIP program. I might be wrong, but I will take that on board and understand how we can bring that information back to you and to the community in regards to the performance of the LIP program.
Thanks very much. I do think that that's an important aspect of it. I know from my perspective, I've had a lot of good things happen in the community and other things that just haven't happened quite as fast as they could have. So I think a reporting mechanism that we can let the community know what council's doing as a whole is a good thing. And I wasn't sure whether it was part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I just wanted to also add with the detailed design work for the Greater Flagstone Hub, that has been out of council's control because we have been waiting on the land to get handed over. So I just wanted to make that very clear that this was by no fault of council, but we have postponed it and moved it backwards because of Pete having to hand the land over by EDQ, and I believe it is sitting with EDQ at the moment, and we're just waiting for it to actually be handed over to us. So that's why that one has been pushed. And then I have Councillor Kransky.
Thank you, through the chair. Mr Trinker, I would like to say that I recall some time ago perhaps being somewhat critical of how our measurements were against the corporate plan and the operational plan, and I'd just like to say that it's really refreshing to see so many of the loops closed, and I'd like to commend you and your team on the great work that you've done there. Credit where credit is due.
Thank you.
If I may, I hadn't quite finished. And I won't beat the gong. Obviously, the City of Choice initiative has been an area that I've mentioned several times before, so I won't revisit that conversation. But just to say that I'm glad to see that the steering committee will be engaged in the next part of the next iteration of the City of Choice journey, and I sincerely do wish them every success in making this initiative come back to life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kransky. Do I have a mover for the report's motion as displayed on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Kransky. Do I have a seconder for the motion as displayed? Thank you, Councillor Raven. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. That marks the end of Mr Trinker's reports. Is there any general business for him this morning? No. Do you have any general business for us? Lovely, thank you. I will now move on to the next item. The next item is 5.1. Okay, 5.1 is the calendar of meetings for January to December 2022. I will now refer to the item 5.1 and I will ask for the Corporate Governance Manager, Ms Sue McDonald, to enter discussions. And just as we wait for her to pop in, do any councillors have any conflict of interest to declare this morning? No. There being none, I will now refer to Ms McDonald as soon as she's ready to open public discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. The purpose of the report this morning is to adopt the calendar of council and committee meetings for the 2022 calendar year. I take the report as being read and request that the calendar be adopted. Once it's adopted, I will then take the appropriate actions to ensure that councillors, staff and the community are notified.
Thank you. And just before I open it up to the floor for councillors' discussions, just for those of you at home and those of you that can see the calendar, in the calendar we do have in August next year, Monday the 8th for the Echo holiday. We will be having conversations in the coming weeks and we will go out to community consults so that we can decide what we will do with that date in the future, and that will probably come back up again to adopt again if we have a proposed change. So thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the report? No? I will now ask if there is a mover for the report as displayed on the screen. Thank you, Councillor Raven, and Councillor Power has seconded the motion. Thank you so much. Do any other councillors wish to speak? No? I will now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. That marks the end of Ms McDonald's reports. Is there any general business for her? Do you have any general business for us this morning? Lovely. Thank you so much. I will now move on to the next item. We are now down to 6.1. And I will now ask the Finance Manager, Ms Caroline Bugg, to please come in and enter discussions. But before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? No? We'll just wait for Ms Bugg to come up to the podium, and when she's ready, she may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Item 6.1, the types of investments for council surplus funds. So this report is requesting that the Finance Manager be authorised to invest surplus funds in the types of investment discussed in the report. Take the report as read, however, highlight a couple of points. The types of investments identified in the report are as per regulation and consistent with the recently adopted investment policy and related procedures. There are a few different additional types of investments identified with this new policy that may suit council and include investments with Queensland Investment Corporation, as well as the previous types of investment used such as term deposits and our current accounts at Queensland Treasury Corp. These investment types continue to maintain a conservative approach to investing public monies, although by using medium-term investments, so that is up to 3 years, council should see an increase in income and improved cash flow in comparison to our current investment strategy. Just as an aside note, an additional 1.5% return on investment would equate to, if we invested $20 million, $300,000 per annum. If we invested $30 million, it would see an additional $450,000 return to council. Happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you. I have a couple. I have Councillor Fraser and then Councillor Power. So Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you mentioned 1.5%. Is that the investment return that we would expect, or would we expect a greater amount, or hopefully would we? Or
So at the moment, our investment returns are less than 1%. Some of the returns over a 3-year term that QIC are putting forward are over the 2% mark. So I'm just using that as an indicator that if we get an additional 1.5%, they are the additional income to council.
yeah, okay, thanks. So there is no way of us being able to invest and get a little bit more than 2%, because 2% is just a touch more than CPI, really.
So we are bound by fairly strict rules around what we are permitted to invest public monies in. So we have to maintain a conservative approach. With a conservative approach, you get the conservative returns. So in short, no, we can't go into the more speculative investment types, which would give you a greater than 2% return.
No worries, thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Power.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just with the wording of the report, Robert, bear in mind that residents will read the report. Can we tighten the wording up in regards to councillor surplus funds? Because people could obviously look at this and think that we've got surplus funds, and obviously it's constrained surplus funds that obviously we have to basically mine for developers and that type of thing. Can we sort of tighten that up a little bit? Because I wouldn't want, particularly the media, they're not that bright these days, you know, to talk about council having funds left over or whatnot, because obviously we've got to hold this in, that's all. Thank you.
Through the Chair, that's a good point, Mr Mayor. You are correct in that the majority of our cash balance is constrained, and that means that we need to use that cash for a specific purpose. As such, the terminology surplus just means that we have a here and now opportunity to invest those funds to receive interest, returns to council. However, ultimately those funds are earmarked for a specific purpose, so you are correct, and I take on board your point. And in future we will make sure that we make that clearer.
Thank you very much. Do I have a mover for the report's motion as displayed on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Raven. Do any other councillors wish to speak to the report? No. I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise a hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. All right. That marks the end of the Finance Manager's public reports. Is there any general business? No. There being none, I will now move on to the next item. Thank you, Ms Bugg. We will call on you again shortly to speak to your next report. Thank you. We'll now move on to item... Gosh, I keep forgetting to take this off. I'll now move on to item 7.1. Can we please ask the Administration Manager, Ms Kay Sullivan, to please enter discussions? And before we open discussion, do any councillors have any conflict of interest to declare? No? We'll just wait for Ms Sullivan to pop in. We do have the managers waiting outside for us this morning so that we're not all crammed in here. And when you're ready to proceed, Ms Sullivan, take it away.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, councillors. This report refers to our proposal to move to strategic contracting principles. And I have to say I'm very excited to be presenting this report to you today. It's a milestone for council, and it actually represents 18 months of planning, research, data mining, analysis, consultation and more consultation, communication, change management, and even the implementation of real-time trials at an enterprise-wide level. What the last 18 months has shown us is there is a better way that we can undertake procurement for our organisation that reflects our size, spend, profile and complexity. The legislation allows us to do this, which is why the recommendation is that Council moves away from the default contracting procedures and adopts the strategic contracting procedures. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank the procurement program leader and her team for their unwavering commitment and effort to getting the best outcome for Council. As described on page 66 in the report, there is a process we must follow to adopt the strategic contracting procedures. Steps 1 to 3 is what we're doing today. So we needed to give public notice. We needed to decide by resolution to apply the strategic contracting procedures, which is what this report refers to. And we also needed to consider the costs and benefits of complying with the strategic contracting procedures, which is documented in the report. What we would continue to do, should the resolution be adopted to move to strategic contracting principles, is the next steps. So we'll need to make and adopt a contracting plan, make and adopt significant contracting plans as well, and make and adopt a contract manual. And in the interim, we will continue to comply with the default contracting principles. So I will take the report as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
stuck on my earrings. Thank you. I will now open the floor to councillors for discussion. Do I have anyone that would like to speak? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Kay, for your report. I just wanted to let the other councillors know, through our discussions, Natalie and I as the chair, we spoke to Kay with regards to the procurement side of things and how quick our turnaround could be. And in some cases, instead of taking a year to procure something, it could turn around in 12 weeks. So this is an absolute gold piece of work by this committee to get this up and running, and I thank them for their work. So it just means that our jobs out there can get done a hell of a lot quicker and in a better time frame. So I congratulate you on your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. And I want to give my huge gratitude and thanks to Kay and her team. It's been a huge effort. That this process actually started last term when we were trying to improve the local buy policies and the social procurement policies. And we realised that the default contracting process was just too limiting, and that no matter what we did with those policies, we were still going to end up with very similar results to what we'd always had. Fast forward to this term, and the work that your team has done to increase the local spend has been awesome within that framework. And now I can't wait to see how much better value for money, how much more quickly we'll be able to turn around tenders, and all the money we will save in doing that, let alone the extra value that we will actually get out of those tenders. So keep up the great work. It's very exciting, and I can't wait to see how much extra money we've got to spend for our community and save them on their rates notice.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Mayor Power.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Robert, it's got the magic word in here, savings. Really turned on by this report. Is there any way that we could get a report at the end of this financial year to keep a cost of how much money you've actually saved? Would that be in the reportable area of your reports? I'd be really interested to see what the total at the end of the year is.
Keeping in mind, it is going to take us a year to actually fully implement strategic procurement. So it goes live on the 1st of March 2022. But we've seen during the pilot that we've put in place, or Kay's team put in place, we're able to identify through the various pieces of procurement opportunities the savings that have been identified. So we will be in a position down the track to have a look at those individual procurement exercises and identify what the savings are. In some cases, the savings allow the branches to actually deliver more for the same level of budget. So, in some cases, there are significant savings over the life of the contracts. So we will be in a position to quantify that and bring that back in future reports. But keeping in mind, it doesn't fully go live for 12 months.
Just with that, Robert, because you probably spoiled it a little bit.
Okay.
You just said something that sort of like distracted me a little bit, in that you just said that the officers may be able to get more for their money rather than a savings. Who makes that call? Because obviously, you know, we have a budget. Yeah, they might be able to get, and for instance, let's just say it's, you know, more bitumen or something like that. To go a little bit further, but in some cases, you know, where is the decision made to actually save money? Because obviously, it would be nice to have more of a surplus at the end of the year, so that we can do other things. That's all. And I hate to think that each manager thinks, oh well, we'll just spend a little bit more.
So just to highlight there's a couple of opportunities. So savings potentially allows the line areas to deliver more, but it also future-proofs the organisation against growth. So where we've got cost pressure due to growth, so instead of the line areas coming back asking for more money during the budget process, they may be able to offset the increased cost in growth through the strategic procurement exercises. But back to your original question, in relation to who holds the line areas to account, well, ELT has signalled that it wants to maintain oversight of this particular initiative, and I think that the ELT will be taking a role in relation to where those significant savings go, and that could include bringing reports back to council and bringing reports back as part of the budget process with regard to where the savings are allocated.
So I would still like to obviously see the end product at the end of the financial year to see how much we've been able to save, rather than obviously, spend more and get more for our money. I'd like to see a savings, obviously.
Through the chair, I'm happy to bring back specific reports that identify, circle back in relation to strategic procurement and identify what the savings are.
Thank you. And I think if I can speak on behalf of the councils, I think we would welcome reports coming back during the budget process so that we can see just how much those savings have been made. Councillor Heremiah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've had the privilege to sit down with the procurement team and to actually see their hard work in action. And I'd like to pass on my thanks to Kay and the procurement team for their hard work, but also for the innovative thinking when it comes to this project and this transition. What I really love about this is the savings and the changes that we're seeing in the city from it, but also that it brings people together. It has the backing from the politicians, it has the backing from the organisation, but most importantly, it has the backing from the community. When I go out and I explain what's happening in council procurement to my electorate, they love it. They love the idea that council understands how important a ratepayer's dollar is, and I'm just proud to see such an impactful change happen so quickly in council. So, Madam Chair, I'm happy to move when appropriate.
Lovely. Does anyone else have anything to add? No? Councillor Heremiah has moved the motion that is displayed on the screen. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Do any other councillors wish to speak? No? I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you so much. That marks the end of Ms Sullivan's public reports. Is there any general business for her? No? There being none, I will move on to the next item. And thank you, Ms Sullivan. We will call on you shortly to speak to your confidential report. We will now move on to item 8.1, which I note is a confidential report on the agenda. We will ask the Finance Manager, Ms Caroline Bugg, to please re-enter the discussions. And before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest? No? Now, I do note that item 8.1 is confidential, and I note that it is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session, as the confidential report contains private and confidential information relating to a sundry debt. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? No? I'll remind councillors that if there is no desire to discuss the confidential matters, there is no requirement to move into closed session. So I will now open the floor to Ms Bugg to speak on the report in public.
Thank you, Chair. So item 8.1 is the write-off sundry debtor 146963, and I'll just touch on a couple of points. The amount to be written off is $21,138.93 as a result of a motor vehicle accident damaging council property. The debt does date back to 2018. There were some delays in obtaining all relevant information to facilitate council chasing the debt, and these are outlined in the report. Given the driver was driving under the influence, the accident damage isn't covered by insurance, and council is left to pursue the debt from the individual. The individual was not located when a skip trace was conducted. Given the time that has elapsed and not initially finding the driver, it is deemed uneconomical to pursue the debt any further, as the outcome is unlikely to change and the pursuit of the debt will increase costs to council. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. I will now open the floor to councillors if they have any questions, just reminding them that we are in public. No? Thank you, councillors. I note that there is a motion on the screen. Do I have a mover for the motion on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. Councillor Stemp has seconded. I will now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried by unanimously, with the exception of Councillor Bannon, who is not in the room. All right. Sorry, I just need to catch back up. I think that is the, any GB for Miss Bugg before she goes? No? Perfect. Any for us? No? Lovely. Thank you so much. You are free to go back to work. Thank you. And now we will refer to item 8.2 and we will ask Administration Manager Ms Kay Sullivan to please re-enter the discussions. Do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare on item 8.2, just while we're waiting? No? Now, I do note that 8.2 is confidential, and I note that it is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session, as it includes information that is commercial in confidence and relates to contracts proposed to be made by council. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? And if applicable, please provide an overview of your intended discussions if it's different to the prepared motion. Councillor Bannon, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor Power. I will note that the motion is on the screen. Sorry, I forgot that part. The motion has been carried. The meeting is now closed to the public. Please be advised that the meeting is now in confidence.
Madam
Sorry.
Chair, point of order, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
I think we had a mover and seconder, but I'm not sure if everybody voted.
Apologies, I skipped that part. Sorry. I will now open the floor to vote. All those in favour of moving into confidential? Sorry. Thank you so much. Okay. Councillor Bradley has abstained and all of the rest have voted in favour of moving into confidential. Thank you so much. So sorry. The meeting is now closed to the public. Please be advised that the meeting is now in confidential session and therefore the recording of this meeting will be suspended until it reopens. Alrighty, I'm just going to confirm that the audio recording has been turned off and audio is off, live streaming is on. And the public live streaming has now back. Sweet, we've got a thumbs up, thank you. Okay, I have a motion on the screen. If you can cast your eye over that. Councillor Bradley is very happy to move the motion on the screen. It is a very long one, apologies. Yeah, we're just looking over it. Go back up to the top. Do we have which option it is? Oh, it's in number 3. In 1? It's in the... Okay, beautiful. Perfect. Councillor Bradley has moved that motion. Do I have a seconder for the motion that is on the screen?
One question,
Yes.
sorry, that's not confidential. Where would the funds go? Does it have it in there? Thank you. That's all I wanted to check. All good.
Beautiful. All right, so do I have a seconder for the motion that's on the screen? Councillor Bradley has moved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Power has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried with the exception of Councillor Hall. How do you vote?
Against.
And Councillor Bannon?
Against.
Thank you so much. Awesome. All right, that now takes us to the end. I note that does anyone have any general business for Ms Sullivan? No? Any general business for us?
Nothing today, thank you.
Lovely, thank you. I note that due to social distancing, not all managers or staff could attend. That being said, does anyone have any general business for Mr Strachan this morning? No? Do you have any general business for us? No, thank you. Beautiful. That completes our agenda for today, and I declare the City Governance Committee meeting of the 11th of August 2022 concluded at 10:45 a.m. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.